Good morning, class 6. We have started chapter 11 of your history book, Buildings, Paintings and Books. In the previous class, we have talked about metallurgy, how it developed in India, what was we have the example till today or till date, the iron pillar at Mehrauli in Delhi. Then we have talked about the Sanchi Stupa and the different temples like the temple of Bhitragaon at which is in UP. What are the structures in the temple? That is Garbhagriha, Shikhar, like all these parts which were there in the temples. Then how were stupas and temples built? The location was decided by the king and or the queen, and then the like when the place was selected, then post selection of the place, different things were done to bring to build those stupa or the temples. We have discussed all these things. We have talked about the paintings at Ajanta, although we cannot name them, like who was the person who made it, and the painting was around 1500 years old. Now we have to start with the we have talked about Silapadikaram, that is the Tamil epic. We have talked about the Minamakai, which was composed by Satanar, and it is like you can say the continuation of Silapadikaram, because here they have talked about the doctor of Kovalan and Madhavi. Now we have ended at discussing about the verse from Meghdoot. It was a Sanskrit poem and it was written by Kalidas. From the name itself, it is very clear. Megh is cloud and Doot is a messenger. So here it is like you can say the poet has tried to express the feeling of an estranged lover, and he is trying to send messages to his lover through the messenger, that is cloud. So it's a very beautiful poem. Then we have to start with recording and preserving old stories. A number of Hindu religious stories that were in circulation earlier were written down around same time. These include the Puranas. Purana literally, which means old. The Puranas contain stories about gods and goddesses such as Vishnu, Shiv, Durga or Parvati. They also contain details on how they were to be worshipped. Besides, there are accounts about the creation of the world and about kings. The Puranas were written in simple Sanskrit verse and were meant to be heard by everybody, including women and Shudras, who were not allowed to study the Vedas. They were probably recited in temples by priests, and people came to listen to them. So, the Puranas, from the name it is clear that it is like old. So, they contain the stories of different gods and goddesses. But then the Puranas which were recited in the temple by the priest, even the Shudras and women could come and hear or listen to it. Two Sanskrit epics, the Mahabharata and Ramayana, had been popular for a long time. Some of you may be familiar with these stories. The Mahabharata is about a war which was fought between Kauravas and Pandavas, who were cousins. This was a war to gain control of the throne of the Kurus, and the capital was Hastinapur. The story itself was an old one, but was written down in form in which we know it today, about 1500 years ago. Both the Puranas and the Mahabharata are supposed to have been compiled by Vyas. The Bhagavad Gita, about which you learned in chapter 9, was also included in Mahabharata. The Ramayana is about Ram, a prince of Kosala who was sent into exile. His wife Sita was abducted by a king of Lanka whose name was Ravan, and Ram had to fight a battle to get her back. He won and returned to Ayodhya, the capital of Kosala, after his victory. Like Mahabharata, this was an old story that was now written down by Valmiki, who is recognized as the author of Sanskrit Ramayana. There are several versions, many of which are performed of the Mahabharata and the Ramayana, popular amongst people in different parts of subcontinent. Find out, so you can talk about it. There are different versions of these books, Mahabharata and Ramayana. Stories told by ordinary people. Ordinary people also told stories, composed poems and songs, sang, danced, and performed plays. Some of these are preserved in collection of stories such as the Jataks and the Panchatantra, which were written down around this time. Stories from Jatak were often shown on the railings of stupa and in paintings in places such as Ajanta. Here is one such story, the story of the Monkey King. Some of you might have read it. You can see the picture which is there. It is like, depicting this story. Once upon a time, there was a great Monkey King who lived on the banks of Ganga in the Himalayas with 80,000 followers. They fed on the fruit of a special mango tree, which were very sweet. Such exquisite mangoes did not grow on the plains. One day, a ripe mango fell into the river and floated all the way to Varanasi. There, the king of the city, who was bathing in the river, found it, and was amazed when he tasted it. He asked the foresters of his kingdom whether they could find a tree for him, and they could lead him all the way to the Himalayas. There, the king and his courtiers had their fill of mangoes. At night, the king discovered that the monkeys were also feasting on the fruit and decided to kill them. So there was a Monkey King who was living in Himalayas, and he had around 80,000 followers. They ate the fruit of the special mango tree, which tree was not found in the plains. One day what happened, that a mango fell from the tree in the river and it floated and it reached Varanasi where the king was bathing. He got that mango, and when he ate it, he found that the taste was very different, and he wanted that, like his people, to find out that where the tree was. So his courtiers took him to Himalayas where his people and the king himself had ate lots and lots of mangoes. At night the king saw that the monkeys were also eating the same fruit. So he got a little angry because he felt that animals are eating the fruit. So what he did was, he decided to kill them. However, the king of monkeys worked out a plan to save his followers. He broke off branches of the mango tree and tied them to form a bridge across the river and held on to one end till all his followers crossed over. So what he did was, he took the branches of the mango tree, and tied them, and he tied it in such a way that it formed a bridge. And on the other side, he himself held it so that his followers can cross over. Exhausted with the effort, he fell down and lay dying. But then in that effort, he was exhausted, he was very tired, so he fell off. He fell down, and he was waiting for his death to come. The human king saw what had happened and tried unsuccessfully to revive the monkey. So when the king saw, human being, who was a human being, he saw it, so he thought of reviving the Monkey King. And tried unsuccessfully to revive the monkey. When he died, the king mourned his death and paid him full respect. So when the monkey died, he felt sad, and he paid full respect to the dead monkey. This story is shown on a piece of sculpture found from a stupa at Bharuch in central India. Can you identify which part of the story are shown in the sculpture? So you can obviously see which part of the story has been depicted. Writing books on science. This was also the time when Aryabhat, all of you are aware of and you know about this person, Aryabhat, a mathematician and astronomer. He wrote a book in Sanskrit known as Aryabhatyam. He stated that day and night were caused by rotation of the earth on its axis, even though it seems as if the sun is rising and setting every day. He developed a scientific explanation for eclipses as well. He also found a way of calculating the circumference of a circle, which is nearly as accurate as the formula we use today. Varambhira, Brahmagupta, and Bhaskaracharya were some of the other mathematicians and astronomers who made several discoveries. Try and find out more about them. So you can see how much contribution he has done, and till date, the formula which we use for finding the circumference of a circle, it is almost similar which we are using in present day. 0. While numerals had been used earlier, mathematicians in India now invented a special symbol for 0. This system of counting was adapted by the Arabs and then spread to Europe. It continues to be in the use throughout the world. The Romans used a system of counting without using 0. Try and find out more about it. So, Romans were not using 0, and the counting system which was adapted by the Arabs. So, 0 is the contribution of India. I hope you all are aware of the fact. Ayurveda. Ayurveda is a well-known system of health science that was developed in ancient India. The two famous practitioners of Ayurveda in India was Charak, 1st, 2nd centuries, and Sushrut. Charak Samhita, written by Charak, is a remarkable book on medicine. In his treatise Sushruta Samhita, Sushruta speaks about elaborate surgical procedures. So they have been famous for the Ayurvedic knowledge. Paper has become a part of our daily lives. The books we read are printed on paper, and we use paper for writing. Paper was invented in China about 1900 years ago by a man named Kai Lun. He beat plant fibers, cloth, rope, and the bark of trees, soaked these in water, and then pressed, drained, and dried the pulp to create paper. Even today, handmade paper is made through a similar process. The technique of making paper was a closely guarded secret for centuries. It reached Korea about 1400 years ago and spread to Japan soon after. It was known in Baghdad about 1800 years ago. From Baghdad, it is spread to Europe, Africa, and other parts of Asia, including the subcontinent. So that is all for today, class. I'll be sending you the question answers. Please do read the chapter so that you can understand it. Thank you. Take care of yourselves. Be safe at home.